Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with Trailblazers, brought to you by TechEdge AI, the video podcast where we bring you the latest trends and insights in AI and technology. I'm your host, Sadesh, and today we have with us Nick Ayers, Vice President, Field Engineering APJ at Databricks. Databricks is on a mission to help data teams solve the world's toughest problems. So, without further ado, let's welcome Nick. Hey, Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Likewise, Nick, we're quite excited to see what wonderful insights you have for us. Perfect. So, starting off, Nick, would love to know a bit more about you. I'm pretty sure our audience would love to take a lot of cues, tips, and tricks from your career path.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share a little bit about my journey. First thing you might notice is a pretty funny accent. So, born and raised in South Africa. So, I spent most of my life in South Africa, and I've worked across three continents along that way, mastering data and AI. So, 25 years in the data and AI industry. Starting off in SAS, statistical analysis software, then Hortonworks, now Cloudera, one of the open source analytics vendors, and now Databricks, where I'm very fortunate and honored and humble to lead our best and brightest technical field that help our customers and our partners in our ecosystem, bring AI to their data and help them then take their AI and data products and services out into the world. It's a wonderful role, super exciting. Yeah, but it's been a heck of a career and a heck of a ride across three continents. Now based in Singapore, and I absolutely love it, and working predominantly with customers in Asia Pacific and Japan.
Perfect, lab. That's quite exciting. You've been quite a globetrotter. So, Nick, 2026 is being called a pivotal year for AI adoption, right? So, for your organization, do you see this as the year of execution rather than experimentation?
100%. Yeah, 2026, I think, is going to be a major inflection point for everyone, whether they are experimenting today with data and AI or not. AI is really moving from experimentation, typically in the way of, largely generative AI workloads, generating insights for customers, into a world where data and AI and increasingly agentic systems are going to be autonomous and taking autonomous action on behalf of companies and the people that they serve. So, this is an inevitable, and this is really, really taking place at a heck of a speed. So the question is going to become, are you going to seize this moment, and are you going to jump on board and kind of get involved and get going, or fall behind? Because it's inevitable. Like this is the way it's going. It's not hype. It's not a bubble. It's reality. And I think those that don't get involved, don't get started, they're going to get left behind. It's hard though, right? I think you would attest this. You would know this speaking to others. It's incredibly hard. Getting AI, getting agentic systems right is a very, very hard problem. One, because you need great quality data. That data needs to be trusted. You got to have really good governance and controls on top of it. And ultimately, when you put it into these models and into these agentic systems, you got to trust what comes out the other side. Got to make sure it's of quality. It's really, really going to deliver, and deliver in a way that is in line with your policies, your processes, your tone, your ethical standing as a company, a product or service provider. And that's where a company like Databricks comes in. We want to make that super simple for our customers with the technology capabilities that we provide.
Now, let's talk models, right? So, how do you approach choosing LLMs today? And do you see a future where vendor agnostic model selection becomes the norm?
Yeah. I think, again, if we look back at 2025, I think it was a year undoubtedly where there was a lot of noise and a lot of hype in the market around which frontier model is going to rule them all. And I think the reality is none. They're all incredibly good in different areas, and they're all incredibly good at general sort of problems. But the reality is, customers want choice, and increasingly, you don't want to be dependent on a single model for everything that you do. You really want to use the best model for the discrete tasks in your organization. So you want choice, you want portability, you want a safe exit strategy that allows you to experiment across all the frontier models and deploy the right model for the right task. The other thing that you want to do is you want to abstract all of that, because really, do you want to be an AI futurist guessing which model is better at this problem or that problem? Or would you rather have all of that abstracted for you, and you could literally just describe the business problem you want solved and then have a system automatically pick the greatest techniques, the greatest models, the greatest agentic, multi-agentic deployment to get it right? And that's what we're solving at Databricks. With Agentbricks, our customers don't have to be AI futurists. They don't have to guess which model is best. They can use all of our PhD research They can use the latest and greatest tools and techniques by just describing the business problem. And then Agentbricks will pick the right techniques, the right tools, the right research, stitch it together, do that all automated in an automated way, just by the customer describing their problem in natural language, and we'll continuously evaluate and assess the performance thereof. And again, our customers can dial that in with a human in the loop as well, which is pretty cool.
That sounds quite interesting. Now, we all know that every AI initiative out there works out as planned, right? So, can you share an experience where a model didn't perform as expected, and how do you kind of pivot it?
Yeah. I think again, one of the things that's really important is, like I said at the start, these models, these agentic systems, these multi-agentic systems are only as good as the quality of the output. And then there's another dimension around, can you get it to scale, right, at a cost base that's meaningful for you to get the return on what you're doing there. But that quality dimension is arguably the most important dimension. So what you've got to do is, just like humans in your team that need constant performance reviews and performance management, and you've got to give them really good feedback on how to do better and be better at their job, these AI systems need the same. And we call this evaluation frameworks. And that's effectively what we've built into our Agentbricks offering. So yes, as soon as these models veer off course, are not delivering the quality that you expect, it's automatically assessed and evaluated, and will give you the opportunity to then improve that model with human-based feedback in the loop, which is really, really cool. But always with the human in the loop, right? Guiding the model to better and higher quality outcomes. So evaluation frameworks are really, really key to spotting and pivoting and addressing these performance models, the performance in the models or the agentic systems.
Great to know that. Now, when we speak about AI, we usually speak about AI governance in parallel, right? So AI governance keeps coming up as a critical success factor. So how do you personally define governance? Is it control, explainability, auditability, or all of the three?
Yeah, for us, governance, first and foremost, when most people talk governance, they're actually only talking about a very, very small surface area of governance. They're talking about your typical tabular data. So the first thing to clarify is governance today, done right, is not just tabular data. It's not just tables. Governance done today is everything that may land up in the data and AI lifecycle. That could be unstructured data. It could be audio. It could be video. It could be text. It may not just be tables. And then what you derive of that also needs to be governed and controlled and secured. So the actual features, the models that you deploy and serve, the inference that you do on top of that, the applications that then leverage that AI and those agents in their application frameworks, that needs to be governed end to end. If you're just governing and controlling the tables, you're not really solving a true data and AI lifecycle end to end. And that's really where Databricks is pretty unique. We've always solved for the end-to-end data and AI lifecycle and all the assets on that journey, whether it be the table, the model, the inference, or the application frameworks that are built on top of that. And to be specific, you mentioned like what sort of features or governance specific features are important there. Fine-grained access control is super important, so you can actually define specific policies based on column or row level, or attribute-based access control based on attributes, lineage, discoverability, and then being able to share and collaborate on that data effectively is also really, really important to governance. So those are things that we think pretty deeply about, but we think very deeply about that, not just for tables, but for everything else that are described in a data and AI lifecycle. And to give you an idea around how much confidence we've got in this, I think the real test, the litmus test for how good is this, it sounds amazing, Nick, but how good is it in reality? I think the litmus test is what our customers do with it, right? So for us, you probably know Atlassian, one of the biggest digital natives on the planet. They've got this amazingly rich suite that's transforming the way people work and collaborate and share together. Atlassian just released something called Rovo, which is their AI assistant. And Rovo leverages everything that we've been talking about, and it's all governed, controlled, and secured using these capabilities. But it also brings in this wonderfully rich agentic world and conversational analytics world, such that their users who are non-technical can literally just ask a question inside Rovo, and they can unlock incredible insights. As an example, a product manager could ask, hey, which customer segments are most engaged with this feature over the last 90 days? And the Databricks query runner in Rovo will just go and figure it out, leveraging these agentic frameworks and ensure that it's governed, controlled, and secured when it happens.
Quite interesting. I was aware about Robo, but wasn't aware about, the entire range of features. So thank you so much for, highlighting that aspects while you were explaining this. So that's quite interesting. Now, we know there's a clear shift away from deploying AI for its own sake towards delivering real value, right? So what does delivering value mean for your business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And look, something that I'm pretty passionate about. And I say this to everyone that I work with and have the pleasure of working with, whether they're customers, partners, prospects, or the ecosystem by and large. I love the technology. I hope that's clear from the passion on the discussion. But technology is only one part of the overall solution, right? There's a lot of other things that you need to consider around driving business value, and business value requires a couple of other things, right? Technology is absolutely an enabler, but we've got to be pretty clear on what the transformational changes that we're trying to drive. So what is that sort of end state that we're looking to drive for the business? Why is it compelling? What specifically is it going to drive in the way of business value, top line, bottom line, or mitigating risk? And then how do we get there, not just with technology, but by really enabling people and process and policy change more often than not as well is coming with that. So to drive real business value, yes, you need the technology as the enabler, but you've got to have a North Star that is anchored in how do we really create a return for the business that is quantifiable? And then what are the change agents and what is the change process that we need to go through from a people, process, and policy perspective to support it? Good example of that, again, we've got a great customer in Australia called Seven West Media, one of the leading integrated media companies in ANZ. They built an entire AI factory on Databricks. So think about a world where everything that they are trying to solve from a business perspective, whereas content, advertising, audience engagement, all powered by data and AI, all LLM driven, but all with how do we make a bigger impact for our audience, for our advertisers, for the content that we're putting into the platform. And because they had that, absolutely tight focus around business value, they were able to drive 40% growth in the daily active users, $60 million in incremental revenue, and a 35% reduction in the overall sort of data and AI insights team's inbox around the typical stuff that was flowing in, because they could self-serve now, which is really, really cool. So an amazing level of business impact. When you bring those things together, technology as the enabler, that North Star of like, we're going to create value for in the way of content, advertising, and audiences. And then you put a change program around it, in their case, an AI factory, it all comes together. But I think those are the key ingredients for success.
That's amazing. Data underpins everything. Is your organization moving towards a single source of truth for data, or is that still more aspiration than reality?
Databricks uses Databricks. The best way to think about it is, Databricks is built on Databricks. Like we love our product and we use it all over the show internally. My team uses Databricks every single day to figure out how we can better serve our customers and engage with our customers. But we use it in many areas. We use it in marketing, we use it in IT, we use it all over the show. I'll give you some examples. Like on the IT side, we've got this fantastic little bot that I often talk to in Slack called R2DB, which is like a support automation bot. And I can literally ask questions when I'm having problems on my laptop with any of the applications, and it can pretty much go and work with me and solve those problems for me, which is amazing. And then we also built out an analyst relations intelligent assistant. We call it Area. And Area has been game-changing with how we work with the analyst community. We've been able to engage with more analysts, share more information, collaborate on more submissions, and just get the brand and the product out to many, many more analysts than we could do alone. And that's been incredibly, incredibly useful as well. And then another big bet that we're making this year is obviously we're betting big on what we call LakeBase. So if you missed it, we acquired a company called Neon. LakeBase is part of that acquisition. LakeBase is all about, yes, how do we bring all of our data together, not just the traditional OLAP, online analytical processing data, but how do we bring together online transactional processing data? And how do we leverage this Neon acquisition and LakeBase to create an agentic state, an agentic memory across all the agents that we're building out in our organization? So this gives us that capability. which is really cool. So yeah, we love using our own technology. We apply it internally. We use it all the time, but really, we love building this with our customers as well.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about boring AI, using AI to solve repetitive tasks while human focus is on judgment and creativity. So, what examples from your business illustrates that approach?
Yeah. Boring AI, I think, is important because ultimately, I always say to everyone, we want to get away from doing the menial and we want to start doing the meaningful. And I think boring AI, whilst it may be menial, it allows us to do the meaningful if we get it right. So this is an opportunity for us to drive productivity through the roof and to drive the value differentiation of the human in the business and the relationship building that they can do and the strategic thinking that they can do and the strategic impact that they can do, driving that to the next level. So it is important. And we look at this all of the time ourselves internally. Here at Databricks, just to give you an example from my team specifically, we've looked at some of the documentation that my team needs to write to support, customer engagements. And we've learned to actually automate a lot of that documentation production for our customers to make that very, very simple. Think about the proof of concepts that we're running with our customers where we're out there proving the value of Databricks. We actually have ways now to automate what we call our valuation documentation and proof of concept documentation. We obviously never just put the entirely automated version in front of the customer, but gives us a good starting point and allows our people to be more productive on what's the true value differentiator for our customers and then build on top of that. So we're always thinking about how we can take the menial away and work on more meaningful work.
Got it. Now, let's get the crystal ball out, Shay, right? Looking ahead to 2026, where are you placing your biggest bets? AI governance, model experimentation, infrastructure, or talent development?
We only bet one way, and we bet big. We continue to want to win the market and be the category leader. And I have no doubt that we will be in that respect. And I think a good testament to that is our latest Series L round, valued at over 134 billion. With a 4 billion plus Series L investment, and all of that funding, all of that momentum is kind of going into the expansion of our products in a couple of strategic areas, which I'll touch on for you. I touched a little bit on LakeBase. Like LakeBase is a very key pillar to the future strategy for us, because in this future state, this agentic state where agents are working autonomously, as I said, you need a persistent state across all of these agents. You're going to have 10, hundreds, thousands of agents running in your organization. You want a purpose-built database technology that is built for that agent era, and that's exactly what LakeBase is. So LakeBase is going to be incredibly important to that future strategy. This world of apps, I kind of touched on it very briefly. We've got Databricks Apps that then brings an AI-infused, AI-native application framework, so we can attach these databases purposely built for AI. We can attach these agents and multi-agentic systems purposely built for AI native apps all into this application framework, and all the governance and the controls and the security comes with it. So we're moving to a world, I think, where the future is data intelligent AI native apps that are built with these core components. And we're really excited about building that with our customers. It's fascinating. So LakeBase Apps, Agentbricks, that's the future.
I'm quite excited to see how it shapes up. So, the final question, moving ahead to the final question, Nick, with all this rapid change, what do you think wouldn't change in this world of data and AI, even as innovation accelerates?
Yeah, I'll go back to the point I said and we started with, right? Governance is important. It's an absolutely non-negotiable. But the other thing is evaluation, quality. You cannot sacrifice on the quality of these outputs or these AI models or agents. Because ultimately, when you put it in front of the human being and they're consuming what comes out of it, if the quality is not there, guess what? You've lost that customer, you've lost that consumer, you've lost trust immediately. So quality is an absolutely non-negotiable. And to drive that, you've got to make sure that you have a really strong evaluation framework in place. And it needs to be continuous, right? You have to have continuous evaluation frameworks in place. And again, that's where we've put a lot of research and development and effort in. Agentbricks allows you to do that. But if you're going to take away one thing, make sure you pick an evaluation framework, and then you got continuous evaluation running on these models, on these AI agents. You can't afford to get it wrong when it's being consumed by a person on the other.
So I actually had one question for you, because we spoke a lot about AI today, right? So when we speak about AI, how much of AI is too much of AI, according to you?
I don't think there's a limit in that respect, right? I think the limit is not on the AI side, right? I think AI, we are barely imagining how much AI we can consume. I think the limit right now is us reimagining the ways of working. So I think it's more on the people side, and I think it's the change that we need to drive around up leveling data and AI fluency and literacy to understand how impactful this could be. Because I think we can absorb a lot more, but we have to reimagine the ways of working. If we just like, hey, I'm going to bolt on this agent, I'm going to bolt on this model onto an existing process or to an existing application or product or service, that might not be the answer, right? I think that's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it is actually, what if I were to reimagine this from the ground up? What if I were to take away all the steps that exist today and that just becomes a seamless conversation, right? And that becomes a seamless experience. How would I reimagine that with data and AI? So I think the limit is much more on our ability to reimagine the experiences that we think are normal today. I think we're going to see very different experiences, interfaces in the future that are going to be driven and built upon AI and data that are literally going to transform the way that we leverage products and services. So I think the limit is much more on our ability to go through that change and to reimagine these experiences and these interfaces.
Ethical use of AI, personal biases coming into play, and obviously that's definitely going to change. It's going to reshape AI. So what's your opinion about how it's going to look likely in the coming years? These ethics and biases coming into play and reshaping AI.
Yeah, look, very important, right? Again, I think this is part of what we try and solve for through governance controls, security, and evaluation. Part of that evaluation framework, you can actually go and set, hey, is the tone right? Like, am I testing for the biases? Am I doing the requisite tests to make sure that the output from these models is in line with policy procedures around these things? But it has to be front of mind. Like, at the end of the day, you have to guide it, and you have to put the right policies and procedures in place, and you got to stay pretty close to the regulation, which is evolving pretty fast as well. So I think there's a couple of things there, right? The technology will only go as far as you tell it to. You've got to go and put those controls in. You've got to go and describe those tests to make sure that it's in line with your policies and procedures. And then it will obviously guide the model appropriately and control the model appropriately. But you've got to stay up to speed with how the regs are evolving as well. So the regulations and compliance aspects are moving fast. And I think increasingly, yes, more and more expectations will be asked of organizations because, again, we want really good experiences for the consumers. These could be, let's think about health and life sciences. Like, you really don't want a bad experience as a patient, right? So in some of these examples, it is going to become really important. If you're a citizen, if you're a patient, these experiences really matter. So the quality's got to be there, to your point. We've got to make sure that it's ethical. We've got to make sure that we're aligning with the regs and the compliance, and we've got to follow those very carefully.
Absolutely. I mean, lastly, I just wanted to understand, because Databricks is a company I closely follow, right? So, what are some sneak peeks we can look at? Some things that are, crazy ideas that are coming forward in in this year, maybe we can look forward to, or some things that we can look forward to maybe in the coming years from Databricks.
Yeah, the thing that I'm most excited about is Databricks Apps. I think this is absolutely game changing in the sense that I described. I think we're going to be reimagining experiences. We're going to be reimagining interfaces, and I often talk about data and AI done right is when it becomes almost invisible. And I think this is what Databricks Apps allows, because the AI, the agentic systems, they are delivered inside application experiences and interfaces that people know and love, or that people are going to get pretty excited about. So rather than landing up in Databricks, you land up in your social app, you land up in your CRM of choice, you land up in your website of choice, whatever it is, an app, a website, a solution. And then all of that data and AI is infused in it through these application frameworks, which I think is going to be really powerful, really, really powerful. So I'm really excited about that. I think it just takes off all the limits. It's virtually limitless what we can do now and where we can integrate it. Yeah.
That seems super cool. So, quite excited to see how that shapes up. Thank you, Nick. You've been really, really super, calm about a lot of things, and really appreciate you, sitting there. Well, those were some wonderful insights, Nick. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed hosting in our podcast Tuesdays with Trailblazers. And thank you all for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, stay tuned with TechEdge AI for more insights. Till we meet again, signing off, your host Sidesh.